Aloha, this is Santa Surfing. Welcome to Beach Broadcast. Today is Friday, May 23rd, 2025. By the time this gets published, it will be Saturday, May 24th, 2025. Thanks so much for joining us on santasurfing.locals.com. We have lives and we really engage. And this is a very tight knit group of anon surfers that we elevate and try to stay in 5D. And we post things and we just unite as one big ohana. So thanks so much for joining us. And thanks so much for those that have been supporting our show by going into our store. We have these aprons. It seems to be a very popular summer item right now, where we have the People's President and we have President Trump waving from McDonald's. It's an apron and it comes in red, black, and the cream color. And our show is sponsored by Goldco. Goldco is a precious metals IRA company. So they will go ahead and take your retirement funds, a little bit of it, all of it, and whether it is retirement, 401k, and they will convert it into actual physical gold. And if you look at the price of gold as of the day of this podcast, May 23rd, it is at $33.57. Imagine if you had your retirement funds or your 401k into physical gold, how your portfolio would be happy. So go to santasurfinglikesgold.com or click on the sponsor link below. This podcast is a continuation of what I talked about last month with the Endless Frontier, which was held at the White House on April 14th of 2025. It was Director Kratsios, and he was talking about the endless frontier, and it was really a lot bigger than what most can even imagine. The MAHA report, the Making America Healthy Again report came out, and how part of the endless frontier is Neuralink, which is a Tesla technology, and how it can help with autism and Alzheimer's. Our show is also sponsored by Brain Energy. This was a sponsor that we had about 2 years ago, and they came back. And this is excellent in terms of it's loaded with a lot of nutrients. They're natural supplements. This company's been in business for over 20 years, but they're natural supplements to help aid with any of your cognitive health, and it helps strengthen brain function, increases energy and memory. And I take this from time to time, and oh my gosh, I'm afraid to do a podcast when I do it because I don't go squirrel, but I'm a little fast talking and very focused. So click on the link below where it says Brain Energy, or go to Nutrisol.com. Robert Kennedy and his team, they were at the White House. They gave their synopsis of the 70-page report for the Make America Healthy Again report. And there were some very heartbreaking things that were revealed in this report. But I'm going to go ahead and play just a couple of clips of what Bobby Kennedy says, and then I will dive into what President Trump says about all of this and how it ties into the technology, the solutions that can help with the situation that we have right now.
All of us agree that the U.S. will cease to be a world superpower if we continue spending 2 times more than any country on healthcare while living less than citizens of other countries and enduring fertility crisis, a crisis in recruiting people to the military, and the ruinous healthcare costs. Health expenditures are the largest part of the federal budget, and we get sicker for each and every dollar we spend. 90% of that spending is going for chronic disease. And everyone agrees it's a moral failing that U.S. children are on track today to live shorter lives than their parents. The first time in American history where that is the case. This report is the first time in modern American history that the federal government gives a clear-eyed assessment of what is happening to children's health and the potential causes.
And Steve Miller covers this report. It's just well said.
I first want to just take a moment for us to think about how extraordinary this moment is, that Bobby's sitting there right now, not as a private citizen, not as the leader of a nonprofit, but as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, right, behind government seal, issuing, this is a government report, right? His whole life, Bobby has issued private reports, held private press conferences, engaged in private advocacy. And after generations of all of that work, his life's work now has a government seal on it. Think about how remarkable that is.
Steve Miller just nailed it, but in his own way. He was talking about actions that Bobby Kennedy did as a citizen, and how Bobby Kennedy, he won his case against all pharmaceutical lobbyists. Now, this didn't make mainstream media news. Of course, they're not going to go ahead and put that out there. And they were talking, the lawsuit was about the COVID vaccines. They were not vaccines. And in the Supreme Court ruling, again, they're not going to release this to the public because the President Trump team still has to take care of other things. But the Supreme Court confirms that the harm caused by the COVID mRNA gene therapies is irreparable. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States, and there are no further appeals. Again, this was found on a alternative website, so you decide, but I had heard this from many different sources that it happened in December of 2023 when the Supreme Court ruling came down, and this is a report from alternative media from January of 2024. So that is why Steve Miller had worded what he worded about having a report with a government seal, how important that is and how effective it is. Report and how they delivered it, they did it very well. Many things that you already know about is very heartbreaking. President Trump addresses some of the issues and how it really focuses on the children, but he reveals the data about children and how autism decades ago was 1 out of every 10,000, and today it's 1 out of every 31. And it's really heartbreaking because it's not just the child, but it's also the family, the parents, and the struggles that they face. But listen to what President Trump says, and we'll go over this, and then it's going to tie into the Neuralink technology. President Trump went there.
Spread exposure to potentially toxic chemicals. Unlike other administrations, we will not be silenced or intimidated by the corporate lobbyists or special interests. And I want this group to do what they have to do. We have to spell it out. In some cases, it won't be nice or it won't be pretty, but we have to do it. When you hear 10,000, it was 1 in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 31 for autism. I think that's just a terrible thing. It has to be something on the outside. It has to be artificially induced.
Okay, President Trump, in other words, when he says he's not going to be nice, I'm hearing Nuremberg trials, all right? That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that there would be justice for all of those dirty, dirty people involved in processing the foods with chemicals that our natural body cannot digest properly. Therefore, what happens? We end up going to the doctor's office. They end up prescribing big pharmaceutical drugs, and we're just pumped with drugs. Some of you just have a cabinet full of drugs, and it's not what God wanted us, how he wants us to live at all. The big pharma, think about this. We have been fighting and battling the health concerns, exposing the truth, trying to come up with natural cures and remedies that many of you already know about. You get stifled when you put it out there. You get blocked. You get censored. Because big pharma, they're lobbyists, the lobbyists out there, remember what Robert Kennedy said? Let me go ahead and play that clip before I go a little further. Check this out.
This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator in Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything. This is an
Congress and SCOTUS controlled by the pharmaceutical industry. How scary is that? The pharmaceutical industry, they wanted to go ahead and just capitalize on the pain and suffering for you, not caring. Of course, they had to go ahead and use people like Bill Gates and the freak Dr. Fauci to go ahead and roll out certain things, and the fear, all that fear that they put out there. Well, Robert Kennedy is addressing all of this. But in addition to that, remember earlier in the year, last month, he talked about HHS, the Health and Human Services, and what they essentially got rid of.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
Yes, he went there. The child trafficking has ended. Robert Kennedy ended that through HHS. It's no more. They shut it down. The swamp, the deep state, they're losing their stranglehold in every direction. They don't have their U.S. aid funding. They don't have the big beautiful bill that passed the House, barely passed the House, but it did pass yesterday. It has to go to the Senate floor. That pretty much takes away all of their slush money, aka kickbacks, aka money that they needed. The Green New Deal, come on. I mean, who's going to build a bridge that you could drive all the way to Hawaii from California? I don't think so. That would never happen in our lifetime ever. And that's what they are afraid of. They are losing their funding. They're losing their stranglehold, and it's going to catch up with them. And Robert Kennedy, Trump administration, they're doing incredible things. And now we're beginning to see the justice unfold. Andrew Cuomo is now under investigation for his COVID nursing home scandal. The people that have said that Andrew Cuomo killed their grandmother, their parents, because he put them all in a facility knowing, and again, it just, the whole COVID thing was a big scam in every way. And I pray and hope that the hospitals that were involved, that took the bribes, all the medical profession people that knew about those bribes and still went through with it, not caring about human life, that they will pay, because that is the crime against humanity. We have been trying to do everything we could as we the people to find solutions to help improve or prevent that deep state's big pharmaceutical drugs or their man-made diseases or viruses that they throw out in the world. And then we have to deal with what the after effects of things that were mandated just to keep your jobs. That's why I love having ivermectin as one of our sponsors, because this is a company, number one, they have it looks like the lowest price that I could see out there. It's as low as $1.38 to $1.75 a pill. It depends on what package you get. But this is a company that will go ahead and deliver right to your doorstep, no matter where you live in the world. And so this is incredible. But you can contact them at 1-800-298-5604. That's Meta247. That's 1-800-298-5604. So here comes the good part. We know President Trump and Robert Kennedy are not going to be putting this out there with us just ripping our hearts apart, listening to these reports and what's coming out. We know that they have already got things in the works. They just have to roll it out this way. Elon Musk, Tesla Technologies, they've been working on a solution to help those that are suffering with neurological problems. And addressing President Trump's May 22nd, which was yesterday's comment on the autism meeting about the high rates of autism, Neuralink can help those with autism and early stage, those that have Alzheimer's, and it's not even a disease. I'm just going to say Alzheimer's in their early stages. So let's just address Alzheimer's, because this right here is a breakthrough. We will never see any of this coming from big pharmaceutical companies because they wanted the people to stay unhealthy and just leave Earth unhealthy and have the family struggle. But just think about this. If one is struggling to remember the names or stay sharp as you age, imagine a chip that boost your brain like a smartphone upgrade, okay? Or Neuralink could turn Alzheimer's from a dead end into a detour. It's not a cure, but can it help letting you, the person, stay productive, creative? It retreats growth, vision, and action. Tech giving us back our minds. It's not a cure. It's a step towards a world where memory loss doesn't steal your independence. And I will say this: Alzheimer's is a nasty situation to have. Again, I don't want to call it a disease because, again, did the vaccines from the flu vaccines that were mandated caused the Alzheimer's in the elderly people? We never saw this before. Your grandparents, right? Maybe your great-grandparents, they never had Alzheimer's, and suddenly your parents have it, or you have it, or you know somebody that's really close to you that has it, and it's just heartbreaking because they can't remember a thing. So I asked Grok, I said, can Neuralink help with autism and Alzheimer's? And the short answer is yes. Again, it's not a cure, but it can help. So the Neuralink, Elon Musk's brain-computer interface, which is a BCI company, it aims to create implantable devices that connect the brain to computers, recording neural activity and potentially stimulating it. Its initial focus is restoring function for severe neurological conditions, paralysis, spinal cord injuries. But Musk has made bold claims about addressing autism and Alzheimer's, sparking both hope and skepticism. Now, so Grok broke it down for us. You can take a look at this. It's on the article link below. So what's Alzheimer's and then the Neuralink promise. Musk has claimed Neuralink could address memory loss, including Alzheimer's, by restoring neural pathways or enhancing cognitive function. The device's electrodes could theoretically stimulate neurons, monitor activity, and augment cognition, interface with external AI to offload memory tasks, recalling names. Think about that, how AI, again, it's all good AI, and how AI is going to help benefit somebody that has a neurological problem. And they might not be able to remember a name, but they might be thinking it. And then will there be some kind of a device that says, oh, that's Santa surfing. Oh, that's John Smith. Oh, that's your son. That's your daughter, right? And other things they might be able to recollect. It is like literally a Fitbit for your skull. So what happened is Neuralink 2021 monkey trial, a macaque playing pong via implant showed it can translate neural signals into actions. In 2024, a human patient with paralysis controlled a cursor using Neuralink. I'm going to get to him in a moment. Oh my gosh. His name is Noland, and proving basic functionality. Now, for Alzheimer's, early stage intervention could help, but Musk notes late stage cases with severe neural loss are harder to address. And again, this is a short answer for Grok. Grok, you ask Grok a question and they send you about 25 paragraphs of solutions or answers. And bottom line is that they were saying at the later stage of Alzheimer's, it's harder to help. And on autism, okay, so autism is a spectrum disorder. It is a development condition. It's not a disease affecting social interaction, communication, and sensory processing. So think about this. Ever feel overwhelmed by noise or struggle to connect? What if tech could help you feel calmer and communicate easier? Neuralink might not solve autism, but it could empower autistic people to shine in their own way, like the retreat's vision of tech boosting human potential. And if tech could ease one autism challenge, what would you pick? So it's really autism. It's, again, not a disease. Neuralink could still help with the sensory or social challenges. And I think this is really going to be a game changer because 1 out of 31 children born in this world today has autism. Think about that. How Neuralink can help. So you can go through here, but the possible benefits: while solving autism is misleading, Neuralink can theoretically help with specific challenges, sensory overload, social skills, and cognitive support. The other day I talked about the robotics and talking about how the robotics, and then my next podcast on the endless frontier is going to be about transport and about transportation and solutions, and it's just awesome what Elon Musk has been doing. But here's Neuralink's site. Now I want to go ahead and show you this. This is on X. They're launching their first clinical trial in the Middle East at Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi in partnership with the Department of Health at Abu Dhabi. All right, so that was a big thing for last week when Elon Musk was there at the Middle East. But this is if you're interested in a trial, so this is an important step towards making our groundbreaking technology available worldwide to transform the lives of millions affected by debilitating neurological conditions. If you are interested in this trial, join our patient registry. And then they also ask for volunteers. So they've been asking for volunteers because they are working on other types of solutions. We received breakthrough device designation from the FDA to help restore communication for individuals with severe speech impairment. How big is that, right? This includes those affected by ALS, which is autism, stroke, spinal cord injury, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, I can't say it right, and other neurological conditions. If you or someone you love has lost the ability to speak, you can sign up to our patient registry today and help shape the future of communication. We have got 2 billionaires that are changing the world, and we have 1 billionaire that's doing things on the political front and the government front, and we've got the other billionaire who's helping to expose the government scandals, but he's been so heavily involved in these groundbreaking technological solutions, which is just going to be very mind-blowing when they start to roll out as part of the norm. Imagine having to recognize you may have a slight case of dementia, and then being able to have Neuralink help solve the issues that you have, and then you can function almost normally, right? Which would be it would be so huge. So I encourage you to go visit the Neuralink site. So the very first Neuralink recipient and volunteer is Nolan Arbach. This is a really incredible story. I'm going to go ahead and have you listen to this. He said, I didn't have anything to wake up for in the morning, and this has changed that for me. He is a 27, 28-year-old young man who got in a very horrific accident, and so he became paralyzed from the neck down. Listen to what he shares with Good Morning America.
Anything to wake up for in the morning, and this has changed that for me.
In a GMA broadcast exclusive, Nolan Arbaugh, the first human implanted with a Neuralink chip in his brain, is telling his story.
I accepted that I was paralyzed and that was my life. I always held out hope that it would all get better.
At 22 years old, Nolan says he dove headfirst in waist-deep water, struck something, and sustained a spinal cord injury. He couldn't move from the shoulders down.
From the time of your injury until earlier this year, what was your daily life like?
I mean, one thing about being paralyzed is that there's a lot of time to sit and think. And so I thought through basically my whole life and realized all the mistakes I'd made and what I could do better.
Then, just last year, Nolan, now 30, receiving a life-changing opportunity.
One day, one of my buddies from college called me up. We talked pretty regularly, and he was like, hey, Neuralink, they opened up the human trials. And I said, what's Neuralink?
Neuralink, co-founded by Elon Musk, is an experimental implantable brain-computer interface, or BCI, a chip surgically implanted by a robot and connected by threads to a patient's brain that allows the patient to control a computer or smartphone with their mind.
This is all from there to there.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Neuralink is not the only company working on this technology. Several others are also testing their BCIs in paralyzed volunteers. Nolan now joins that small group as Neuralink's first patient.
I was just very happy that I would be a part of something that I believe is so monumental and this next step forward of helping people with paralysis.
What can you do now with the chip implanted that you could not do prior?
I can control a computer just like anyone else can, which is not something I was able to do beforehand.
You just played some music?
Yeah, man.
That's awesome. Do you worry because you are the first patient that something unforeseen could go wrong now that this is inside your head?
I wouldn't say worry. It was something where I knew that if I did this, then it would take a lot of headache and heartache away from the people down the road.
Just last week, news that some of the threads in Nolan's brain had retracted, affecting the performance of the device.
How'd you take the news when they told you that the threads had retracted?
Yeah, it was really hard. It was very, very hard to give up all of the amazing things that I was able to do. I think I had cried basically afterwards.
The problem becoming an opportunity for the makers of Neuralink to explore solutions.
The reason we do clinical trial and early feasibility trial is to uncover these sort of issues as early as possible before they get marketed. And we rolled up our sleeves and found various different ways to for Nolan be able to recover his performance, which we have successfully been able to do.
As for Nolan, the future of the technology only looks bright.
It's going to be amazing when someone can have a spinal cord injury, go into a hospital, get surgery, and walk out a couple days later. I think it's going to happen. I don't think it's as far away as people might think.
Nolan's mom is his primary caregiver.
I think it just became intuitive for me to start imagining the cursor moving. Basically, it was like using the force on a cursor, and I could get it to move wherever I wanted. Just stare somewhere in the screen, and it would move where I wanted it to, which was such a wild. I think it just became.
Nolan, it's just so incredible. Nolan is now, if you take a look at his X page, he's posting regularly. He's being able to he was young, so he was 29. Yeah, I said 26, 27, but he's 29 years old when he ended up getting the implant. But he was 22 when he had the accident, so he had lived several years without having the full function. And how can you imagine being that young? But he is now doing, it's so incredible. And the hope he's giving people. But he's putting out just like jokes, he's putting out comments, he's putting out emojis, he's putting out all kinds of wonderful things. There's a third person that received the Neuralink brain implant as well. It's incredible. His name is Brad G. Smith.
Hi, I am Brad Smith. I'm the third person in the world to receive the Neuralink brain implant. I'm also the first person with ALS and the first nonverbal, which means that I rely on it for all communication. I am making this video using the brain-computer interface to control the mouse on my MacBook Pro. This is the first video edited with the Neuralink, and maybe the first edited with a BCI. This is my old voice narrating this video, cloned by AI from recordings before I lost my voice. I want to explain how Neuralink has impacted my life and give you an overview of how it works. I have ALS, a really weird disease that kills the motor neurons that control my muscles, but not affecting my mind. My experience has been pretty interesting, starting with a shoulder injury that would not heal and ending up with my current status. I cannot move anything but my eyes, and I am totally reliant on a ventilator to keep me alive and breathing. My wife, Tiffany, is the best caregiver I could ever imagine. She does everything for me, with only our kids and friends and family to help. She is the key to making Neuralink work. I will stop talking about her because she doesn't like the attention. Before Neuralink, I had to use an eye gaze control computer for all communication. It is a miracle of technology, but it is frustrating. It works best in dark rooms. So I was basically Batman. I was stuck in a dark room. Neuralink lets me go outside and ignore lighting changes. So how does Neuralink work? The implant is in my motor cortex, which is the part of my brain that controls body movement. The actual implant is the size of 5 US quarters in a stack. It replaced the hole in my skull. The threads are placed by a robot just a few millimeters into my brain, avoiding the blood vessels so there is almost no bleeding. It connects to the computer via Bluetooth, and the computer does a lot of processing. This is a feed from the 1024 electrodes in my brain. In green, it looks like the Matrix. This is the raw signal that my brain is giving the computer. The computer has to decide what is important, finding the signal and ignoring the noise. The Neuralink implant embedded in my brain contains 1,024 electrodes that capture neuron firings every 15 milliseconds, generating a vast amount of data. AI processes this data on a connected MacBook Pro to decode my intended movements in real time to move the cursor on my screen. Neuralink does not read my deepest thoughts or words I think about. It just reads how I want to move and moves the cursor where I want.
What a miracle, because those with ALS and speech, a person with ALS can initially talk, but speech difficulties often develop as the disease progresses. More than 80% of the people with ALS experience some difficulty articulating words and speaking in a way that others can understand. So this is a huge breakthrough for him to communicate the way he's doing that right now. Imagine the lives of Nolan and Brad, the two men I just featured, the breakthroughs they're going through, and how they will now they'll be out there to talk about the benefits of Neuralink and how it can help others. They have a purpose to live now. Think about that. No more being enslaved to the old world and experiencing having to deal with the drugs and having to be dependent on so many other people. Can you imagine also the caretakers? They don't have to get the computer, turn on the TV, turn on the radio. They are able to have a little bit of freedom now, and the freedom for the individuals that are experiencing Neuralink is just life-changing. And we know there's a lot more in store for us. God has given each one of us gifts. He has given Elon and the gentleman, the Asian gentleman you saw, the co-founder of Neuralink, the ability to do a lot of research so that they can give some kind of help to those that have these neurological disorders. I'm using this as an example because some might say, well, Santa, that's a little far-fetched because it is a technology. It's a technology that's helping to improve a person's life. I look at it this way in Romans 12, 6 through 8, and I like to use the Living Bible, but it says, in His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out as much with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach with enthusiasm. If your gift is to encourage others, do it with all the strength and faith God has given you. If you are a leader, lead with a servant's heart. If your gift is to help others, do it cheerfully. And in my Bible, it continues on as well. If God has given you money, be generous in helping others with it. If God has given you administrative ability and put you in charge of work for others, take the responsibility seriously. Those who offer comfort to the sorrowing should do so with Christian cheer. Maybe you don't really know what your gifts are because you've been so afraid to use them because you may have been ridiculed or shot down because it was so powerful, God's gift, yeah? Pray and ask God for direction on how to use those gifts He's given you. And He'll help you through this. He ultimately wants us to just laugh and live, and to live a very loving, beautiful life, a healthy life, healthy in His Word and healthy in how we treat our bodies with the food that we consume, ultimately to embrace those precious moments with loved ones. That's the message I wanted to share with you. I wish you all a beautiful weekend. I will have a show this weekend, but have yourself a beautiful, beautiful long weekend, and I will have a show very soon. God bless you so abundantly.